Hi, my name is Hannah Cook and I will be reviewing the question, critically present your views on whether critical thinking is a vital skill for HR managers today. I will be using existing literature as well as examples from my own experiences to build upon my own views. I will be breaking the question down into 5 key areas that I have identified. The first area that will be discussed is a comparison of some of the various definitions of critical thinking as referred to throughout literature. I will then critique whether critical thinking is a skill, as this question suggests, and whether it can be taught. Next, I will discuss whether critical thinking is actually vital, or perhaps it is just an important skill. The fourth point I will consider is whether critical thinking is important for all managers, or more so for HR managers. I will then discuss if critical thinking is more vital now than it has been in the past. Finally, I will draw a conclusion based on the discussions raised, providing an overview in response to the question. My own personal interpretation of critical thinking is when a topic or area of discussion is assessed more closely to generate further understanding to aid in decision making. Wiesberg, 2013, page 318, defines critical thinking in a similar way when he says it is the ability to move beyond the acquisition of facts to uncover deep meaning. This is not the most prevalent definition of critical thinking. Other definitions include Reynolds, 1998, page 103, who defines critical thinking as questioning of contextual, taken for granted, including social, cultural, and political perspectives. Natal and Ricky, 2006, page 274, describe critical thinking more specifically as rhetorical and dynamic discussion resulting in more effective decisions and accompanying improvements in organisational performance. Dyke et al. 2012 suggests that there are 2 dimensions to critical thinking. Firstly, the technical dimension, which is concerned with performing tasks in an instrumental, rigorous, linear and logical way. And secondly, the philosophical dimension, which allows the thinker to recognise and evaluate the underlying assumptions, which determines what tasks to perform. This leads to a definition of critical thinking as the ability to think deeply and from different perspectives, without necessarily accepting either dimension. Although many definitions of critical thinking are similar, the varying ways in which they are approached suggests that critical thinking can hold a different meaning for people from different backgrounds, such as education, psychology, or business. The question being posed is assuming that critical thinking is a skill, and therefore one would assume that it can be taught to all, but is this really the case? Mulnick's 2012 suggests that critical thinking is a skill, and that can be learnt as it is a habit of the mind. Natal and Ricky, 2006, also agree that critical thinking can be taught, when they suggest that training and development programs, including enhancing critical thinking of employees, will have a large part to play in aiding individual and organisational excellence. Conversely, Wiesberg 2013 proposes that in order to think critically, an individual must first have a detailed understanding of a topic, and critical thinking can be related closely to cognitive ability in general. Critical thinking and IQ share many common elements, including absorbing large amounts of information, quickly organising it, dealing with abstractions, and then drawing out the implications. Therefore, any attempt to learn this skill will fail, just as attempts to increase an individual's IQ will. Daz, 1994, agrees that it is difficult to teach critical thinking. In addition, those who believe critical thinking can be learnt by all and should be used by all are just promoting the fad. Reynolds, 1998, suggests that there has been little translation of critical thinking literature into everyday practices. Mulnick's 2012, page 465, also presents the view that there is a difference in thinking critically and merely constructing a logical argument. Critical thinking involves careful application of the skills of sound reasoning to patterns of belief and a commitment to accept the result of that reasoning, which is harder to teach. The question is asking whether critical thinking is vital. However, critical thinking could just be important rather than vital for all HR managers. Minton Eversole 2013 suggests that one of the most common skills gaps when recruiting HR managers is critical thinking. This suggests that although it is singled out as an important skill, it is clearly not vital due to so many HR managers lacking the necessary thinking skills. Ashton 1996 proposed that critical thinking is key for HR managers so they can add value and realise competitor differentiation for the organisation. One benefit of critical thinking, as suggested by Natal and Ricky 2006, is that it results in a better understanding of all of the elements of a decision and an assurance that the best possible outcome was reached. My placement year within a HR team demonstrated that critical thinking is particularly important within a group setting. We had bi-weekly whole HR team meetings which allowed us to discuss ideas in our representative areas. Process improvement with a strategic focus was a key part of our team, so the opportunity to critically evaluate each other's tasks and projects from a different perspective played a vital role in the improvements we could make. Dyke et al. 2012 suggests that critical thinking is actually an essential skill for all managers in all types of settings. Reynolds 1998 proposes that critical thinking is very important for managers, particularly due to the impact managing exerts on social relationships, wider society and the environment. I agree that critical thinking is important for all managers, not just within HR. Further still, it is important not just for managers, but throughout the whole team. This allows for ideas to flow freely, creating different perspectives on a topic. For example, someone in a project management position may not possess detailed knowledge on all areas of the project, so would have to encourage other members of the project to think critically to ensure the best outcome. Critical thinking can be important even out of the business context. For example, I compete in dressage and show jumping, representing the university. For dressage in particular, it is surprising how the perspective of someone onlooking from the ground can aid in my performance and help me improve by providing tips or critique. The question asks if critical thinking is vital for HR managers today. This suggests that perhaps it is more vital now and going forward than it has been. This could be down to the changes and developments within HR, especially the shift from personnel management to strategic HRM. Guest 1987 proposed that the factors that created a shift towards an interest in HRM include models of excellence, the search for competitive advantage, failure of personnel management, changes in the workforce, and the nature of work and a decline in trade union pressure. He also described the goals of HRM as employee commitment, integration, quality improvement, and flexibility or adaptability. In a survey report published by the CIPD in 2007 entitled The Changing Function of HR, 81% of organisations had restructured within the last 5 years. The most common reason for this was to enable the HR function to contribute more to the overall strategy. Over 30% of the organisations who had restructured were reflecting the three-legged Ulrich model of shared services, business partners and centres of expertise. The company in which I worked for my placement year had already adopted the three-legged model. I felt this worked well as it encouraged the critical thinking, particularly amongst the business partners who could bounce ideas off one another. The overall benefit of HR business partners suggested in the report is that they enable HR to become more business focused and people management issues are given more priority. The NHS hospital I worked at during the summer is currently restructuring its HR function to fit this three-legged model, with the intention of working towards their strategy to become more patient-orientated. In conclusion, the question critically present your views on whether critical thinking is a vital skill for HR managers today poses further questions that need to be investigated before a potential answer can be realised. These questions could include whether critical thinking is actually a skill and if it can be taught. Is the ability to think critically linked to an individual's level of cognitive ability, resulting in it being easier to develop for some than others? Is critical thinking vital for HR managers, or is it more a case of it being important? Is critical thinking important for all managers in general or just HR managers, and could it benefit certain managers more than others? And finally, is critical thinking more vital today than it has been in the past? Until these questions have been understood, reviewed and answered, it is difficult to draw a conclusive answer to the original question.